working on Fallout stuff, and I've been working on lightsabers, and so it's only natural that I'd want to make a Fallout lightsaber. And so I made my version of the Shishkebab from Fallout 4. Now the basic operation is quite simple. I got this pilot light, it's always on, it's a battery level indicator. This handle itself controls the 5 LEDs that are the extra flame jets running down the body of the blade. And then there's actually 2 hidden switches, one on each side, depending on where my thumb is. Or if I tap that, it activates the superheated blade. And so my thought was that, instead of having a metal blade that's kind of covered in napalm and on fire, I'd make the blade itself superheated, glowing hot, and that would be as close to a lightsaber as I could. Looking at this electronically, I have an 18650 battery and battery holder built in here to the bottom. You simply unscrew this cap, grab this guy, and you pull out your battery. Now that's the main source of power for the whole device. This one uses a protected 18650, so I don't have to worry about over discharging the battery. That runs up into kind of a centralized breakout area. There's a breakout from the main battery which runs out here and comes through this cable into here. This powers this LED and its set of resistors. This is the indicator LED. It tells me when I have a battery in, and when this starts to get dim, I know that this battery is about to die. The next area is these 5 flame jet LEDs. They're broken off of the battery. They run through this wire to this switch. You press this guy, it activates all 5 of those. The wires then come out the top and they run all along this top section of the blade. So the activation for the main blade itself is actually hidden underneath these 2 little straps here. You can see there's a little tactile switch here, and there's a duplicate tactile switch on the other side, depending on which hand I'm using it to hold, that I can hit with my thumb, and this allows me to independently turn on and off the big current-sucking LED, independent of any of the other effects, including the fog effects or any of the other lights. As for sound, I actually took a video of me blowtorching a copper pipe, did some audio editing, and came up with some files that I can use that can generate both the ticking sounds as well as the flame on and flame off sounds for this particular prop. The next breakout comes out of this battery, runs up into this switch right here, and then runs into this canister here. This houses a fish pump motor. This generates pressure, which actually comes out and comes in through here, but there's also a set of wires running to this, because hooked in parallel with the pump motor is this fog generation system. It's a 510 connector that I modified, and it uses modified e-cig canisters to generate the fog. This segues into the piping system. Now the piping system on this one has kind of 2 different configurations. The one it's in right now is when it's pumping a fluid known as aerosol or fog, and how that works is when this pump motor runs, you can see it runs up and into this main canister. Before it enters the canister, it runs through this aerosol generator. It's powered when the pump is on. This generates the fog and it pumps up into here. There's a straw that actually connects this input to this input through a big loop, so it directly pumps right in to this kind of pump manifold system. Now, the aerosol comes through these copper pipes and it goes through these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 jets. Now, the way these systems work is they're specially 3D printed tips that I made, so that way I can have an LED sitting in front of the output of my fluid system and yet still have fluid run around it. There's 2 3D printed parts that are glued together, and there's this little suspended capsule that the LED is locked into, completely isolated from flow. So that when flow is actually activated, the flow comes in through the nozzle, but then it splits out and goes around the actual LED and then comes out either the tip on this particular one or 2 small holes on the sides of these. These ones come out the side to help distribute the actual smoke effect along the blade. Now, the other mode I can actually put this into is if I disconnect this straw and I put it into the bottom of this particular canister, and I swap this out for a dummy version which does not generate any fog effects whatsoever, I can now pressurize this vessel. So if I fill this with water and I run the pump, now I pump the water through this actual system. Now, the way this works is I've actually built in a little bit of a valve system in here. You can actually very easily see this valve here. I can simply rotate this particular system here, and what this does is it opens up this T-junction that runs down into here, and this allows flow to come out here. Now this flame jet is actually special. You can see it's a little bit different. If I pop this off, this is actually a valve that I drilled out in the middle of it. So when the valve is open, it acts as a flame jet. It's an output for the system, but when it's closed, it fully locks off not only itself, but all the ones downstream from it. So this means if I open both of these up, fill this with water, and activate the pump, I can theoretically pour 6 drinks at the same time. Or I can lock off this valve or this valve independently, so I can either pour 5 drinks at the same time, or I can pour myself a drink. Mechanically, I started off with an extension tube that I had left over from the Kickstarter from SaberForge. That became the handle. Has a little 3D printed screw-on end cap here. This is actually screwed into the main body, which was 3D printed in SLS nylon for the strength as well as the temperature resistance for the electronics that are inside. And this handle itself was also 3D printed at SLS nylon for strength. I have this 3D printed part here, which is this little kind of oven timer knob. I have a 3D printed end cap here on a piece of tube, which completes this canister. I also have a lot of stuff from kind of local hardware stores. All of this plumbing supplies, these T-sections, the valves, all of that are just off-the-shelf items. This main tank here is actually an old water bottle left over from one of my old jobs. And then I have a couple custom stickers that I made up and printed in paper and then Mod Podged and have attached here. Now you can see I've made some changes to the piping system from the one in the game. I wanted a superheated blade, so I wanted as much of the blade glowing as possible. So I shrunk this section of the prop down as much as I could to give me more room to then spread out the flame jets to heat up the entire blade. I also, instead of having all 5 flame jets on one side, I put 2 on the back. This was for 2 reasons. One, in the game you very rarely see the prop from this side, and it's actually, in my opinion, very boring on the back side. So by putting 2 of the flame jets over there, you can see from either side you're looking at the prop, it's got flamey jets on it. The other reason is I really kind of like the idea, as you can see, of hopping the actual flame jets back and forth through these 45-degree pipes. I thought that was just kind of a cool look to have. The blade itself was a bit of a fun/challenging time. It was actually made out of a 1/4-inch piece of solid acrylic, which I bandsawed into shape and then did a bunch of sanding to put the bevels on. It took about 6 hours to paint this guy. There's transparent yellow, transparent orange, transparent red, and then there's multiple color coats of silver, transparent black, and matte black to black out this back area to give that fade look so that it looks like it's actually, as close as I could get at the very least, to a red-hot piece of metal. I think this is one of the most dense props I have built, with all of the brass and copper piping and the metal handles and the big huge solid blade here. It weighs in a little bit under 4.5 pounds, but it is comfortable enough that at least I can manage to hold it and do what I need to do. And then the last addition I actually built into this, as you can see flipped over here. Anybody who's a fan of a rather wonderful anime/manga will recognize what this is for. This is used as my back mount, so I can easily put this thing on the back of my costume without having to fight to get this into some kind of weird shaped scabbard or something like that, and yet allows me to easily draw the Shishkebab whenever I need it. But there you go. That is, I guess, the Ammnra Creations modded version of the Shishkebab from Fallout 4.